very creamy, really delicious. Salt and twang are really opening up as the filler starts to get more and more wet. Really good flavor there. The smoke by itself, you know, when the filler was drier, has... That's why it's such a great springtime cigar. It's light, but it's creamy. It's like, you know, rejuvenating. The flavor just grows really quickly. There's a grassy type note, a weedy type note, and I don't want to make it sound like when I say grassy like that it's, you know, like like young, or not like that, you know, but just a very fresh type note in there, you know, that it gives a cigar a very fresh, rejuvenating flavor. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What an aroma. Alright, so there's our light and pre-draw. What you can see, I'm just puffing, you know, and this cigar is a bit of a quick burner. It's not underfilled, but it's not packed either. You know, it's rolled just very gently. That's a mild cigar. There's not a hell of a lot of filler packing the whole thing in this case. So it can burn pretty fast if you're not gentle with it. But look at that beautiful ash forming there, you know, different than what you see a lot of the time on a lot of standard Cuban releases, where the ash is just that classic Cuban ash, all kind of a little charcoaly, splintery. This is just really, really nice ash going on there. Oh my goodness. Oh, now the flavor's starting to open up like crazy. Okay. Let that just settle for a second while we get into it. Otherwise, I'll just smoke the whole thing without talking about anything. Oh man, that last one, it was like this, the spice was only on the light really, but it gave the tongue this effect, like this peppery, like a peppery effect, not spicy, and just a big blast of this really salty, citrusy flavor came through. Really good. Really good. So El Rey Del Mundo, again, one of our oldest brands, still in existence since the Revolution. Believed to be created by a German businessman, Emilio Olmstedt, in 1848, along with Sancho Panza. Sancho Panza, not along with Sancho Panza, but Sancho Panza the brand. It was created around the same time. So this was at one time the most prestigious and expensive cigar brand in the world. That's saying a lot, especially back then. You got to realize that, you know, today, while there are 27 Cuban brands, there were 127 Cuban brands. I don't know the exact number, but at least that. By the end, before the Revolution, there was some insane number of brands with, you know, thousands of frickin' vitolas in production. It was unbelievable. So, Spanish businessman. I have BM, short for businessman. I just realized it's a good thing I knew what I was talking about. Spanish businessman Antonio Alones took over the brand sometime in 1882. A rival history of the brand claims that Alones actually re-registered the brand after it became defunct following Olmstedt's death. However, Min Ron Ni maintains that the brand was passed to Alones from Olmstedt's company based on records found stating Alones the owner as early as 1873. In case you're wondering, Min Ron Ni is a cigar aficionado who writes a lot of different books. One of them I know being Post-Revolution Cuba. I forget the exact title, but it's about the post-revolution cigars of Cuba, which is very, very cool, very, very interesting. I don't know how, if he wrote anything like all about old Cuba stuff, but probably. I gotta look it up. Under Alones, the brand reached its height of prestige. Alones' brand was established between 1837 and 1845. So, if we look at numbers for a second, we have El Rey del Mundo, 1848, the birth by Olmstedt. 1848. Larrañaga is 1838. That brings us closer to the oldest, you know. Olones was established between 1837 and 1845. A lot of places just say 1845. We haven't gotten into Olones yet, so I don't know exactly what the discrepancy is. But if it's 37, that's even older than Larrañaga. I always thought Larrañaga was pretty much the oldest of the local pre-revolution brands still in existence. Partagas is still our oldest, but that's not a local brand. It's a global brand, 1827. Anyway, when I say under Olones, the brand reached its height of prestige, I wanted to know why. And I looked up a few things, and Ramon Olones, with using El Rey del Mundo, is thought to be, I don't know if it's definite, most things say assumed, thought to be the first to use colored lithographs in cigar boxes, like those fold-out colored secondary logo things, the one you saw on the box when I showed you. It's also one of the first companies to use bands, if not the first, which makes sense because it's really close to the beginning there. And he's the first to package cigars in the 898 style. What do these three things have in common? Presentation. Presentation, presentation, presentation. In advertising and sales and promotion, presentation is everything. It's literally a staple saying. Presentation is everything. So, through his elegant presentation and the fact that the cigars were probably phenomenal, El Rey del Mundo became known as the most prestigious and was the most expensive brand in the world at one time. Okay, so let's talk about the first third of our cigar before we get into the rest of the brand history. As it is burning, I had to remove the regional edition band, which really does a great job of separating thirds here. The next third is going to be separated by our main band. But the cigar is burning a little more quickly than I would like it to. It is the first third of the cigar, which in general will burn faster than the cigar as it gets down the line. It's also a short cigar at about 4 inches. There's not a whole lot, so we want to get on with things before the cigar burns out and I have to light a second. But let's just talk a little bit about this. Our first third, the smoke. And I'm gonna separate here for a minute smoke and filler, because it's the two things that you get flavor from, and there is a lot of difference. The smoke itself is very, very mild. It has very weedy, almost a hay-like, grassy, and that's maybe why it reminds me so much of spring. It has that flavor. It's a good flavor, but it's very, very mild. Very mild. There are hints of what I keep calling like this very subtle cinnamon type flavor, like like a hint of some sort of spice, maybe a little honey, something like that. A little natural sweetness to it, but overall a very, very, very mild smoke. However, in my opinion, a very, very good smoke. I've seen these on the internet, and there are very mixed reviews and mixed feelings on them. Some people don't like them, some people love them. And I think it has a lot to do with how mild the cigar is. See, flavor for me here right now is actually really starting to open up. I'm getting a really nice salty twang coming from, the filler and everything. As the filler starts to get wet and chewed a little bit, it really starts releasing a lot more flavor in conjunction with the smoke. If you smoke this cigar with a punch, you're not going to get a lot of flavor at all. You're really not. You're just going to get the flavor from only the smoke, and being that it is a mild cigar, you're going to get, a mild-bodied cigar at that. You're going to get very mild flavor. You can't rate a mild cigar based on the flavor you would get from a super full-bodied cigar. It's rated as what it is, and if you don't like mild cigars and you're rating the cigar based on your bias, well, it's just not the way to do it, For me, I like all cigars. Mild, ultra mild, all the way to the strongest there is. I like all different types of cigars for what they are, as long as they offer good flavor, in comparison to bad, bitter, nasty, disgusting flavor, as long as they offer good flavor, it doesn't really matter to me whether it's mild or strong. I will say this though. I've heard, and being a regional edition, you know, this happens sometimes. It even just happened with the newest regional edition that came out, the Infantes, which we'll talk about in a little while, that some of the earlier boxes can be a lot better than the later ones that come out, or vice versa. Yes, there are only 2,000 boxes of these that were produced worldwide, but that's still 50,000 cigars. That's a lot of fucking cigars. And the quality of those cigars and the quality of the tobacco being used can vary from box to box, no less than, you know, crate to crate. So you can have differences. For me, from what I've seen on the internet, I guess I've been lucky. These, the one I'm smoking here is fantastic. Yeah, it's starting to open up a lot. I'm getting a lot of that hay, weedy type flavor, you know, but I'm also getting more honey, a little more sweetness, and what I'm going to call a little bit of, like, I'm going to say white pepper. Why? I don't know, white pepper, black pepper. All I know is it's not as strong as if I would say something like black pepper that would really attack the tongue. It's a little bit of a peppery feeling going on, and a little bit of hint of that kind of peppery taste. But wow, and what an aroma. Going out a little bit as I'm talking, but a really, really good cigar. If you like mild cigars and you like cigars that you know have to search for some complexity, and you will find it in this cigar, trust me, you'll love this cigar. If you like La Gloria Cubanas, you'll love this cigar. As long as it's equal to, you know, in quality as the one I'm smoking here. So, that being said, let's get on to the rest of our history. So here we go. We're up to... In 1905, Alonis Company was bought by the Diaz Hermanos Isia venture, owned by Candido Vega Diaz. Supposedly, who the cigar was named after, Don Candido Cigars. These are pre-revolution cigars. Of course, they're no longer being produced, and they fetch big bucks on the auction block. I mean, you know, talk about cigars that, if somebody ever says to you, like, ah, you're crazy, cigars don't become worth money, just show them auctions on these fucking things. Excuse me. So, one of the pre-revolution brands made exclusively for distribution by Alfred Dunhill of London. Don Candido was distributed by Alfred Dunhill of London. And this brand was discontinued in 1982 when the Cuban Dunhill brand was created. So, that's pretty interesting right there. Let's talk about that for 1 second. Dunhill, another big brand that no longer exists and fetches a lot of money at auctions. Dunhill, Alfred Dunhill of London, was primarily a distribution outfit, and eventually they decided to go into making their own specific brand of cigar. And this brand was run under Cuba Tobacco. Of course, this is 1982, so this is after the revolution. The brand was owned by Cuba Tobacco, and they decided to start making Dunhill cigars. You know, what happened was, people asked, well, why don't they make Dunhill cigars anymore? The problem was that when the Dunhill brand was created, it was created as a super deluxe high-end premium brand, best of the world type of thing. Davidoff was already being produced. That's a whole nother story we're not going to get in. We're already talking about too many different cigars here. Davidoff, that's a whole nother story. So what happened was you had these two brands, Davidoff and Dunhill, competing for which one is the better cigar, but Cuba Tobacco owns both brands. So they have no interest in, you know, getting into this market, you know, thing of like, well, which one's better, which one do we promote? They wanted to make a buck off both brands equally. So as such, Dunhill, who has a contract with Cuba Tobacco, in 1991, the contract expires. They decide they no longer want to be a part of this, and Dunhill, the Cuban cigar brand, ends. Of course, they later on, like a lot of other Cuban brands, moved production, started making Dominican cigars. They went with British American Tobacco, who was being distributed by one distributor, I forget, but that distributor later became a part of Pt2 USA, so Dunhill was being distributed by Pt2 with such series like, Age Dunhill Selection, and then later on, 2010, 11, something like that, Swedish Match General, this whole big thing happens, and then Dunhill decides to go with General Cigar. So they're all over the place, and there still are cigars being made with the Dunhill name on them, but they're really not Dunhill cigars per se, as like the old Alfred Dunhill, it's really that they're letting them use the name to produce cigars, these Dunhill named cigars. Interestingly enough, although we're not talking about Davidoff Cuban cigars also ended in the year of 1991. So probably had a little something to do with the same thing. I know there are some other issues that were involved that had nothing to do with it. Either way, they both ended in 91. So let us move on, as our cigar is moving on quickly. After being bought by the Hermanos Diaz Isia operation, the Alones company is renamed to Rey Del Mundo Cigar Company to reflect its greatest asset, El Rey Del Mundo cigars. The brand also produces Sancho Panza, Rafael Gonzalez, and Don Candido. Sancho Panzas are still, of course, being produced today. They are mild to medium-bodied cigars. A lot of people think they're full-bodied cigars. I don't know what makes them think that. The dark wrappers, maybe the gigantic Sanchez vitola, but they actually are mild to medium cigars. Don Candido, of course, is not produced. We just talked about that. But Rafael Gonzalez is a brand, again, this is produced. A lot of American smokers don't even mention this brand. Look at that. I mean, it's a wonderful cigar, but when something is going how I don't want it to go, I will admit it, cigar is burning fast. And trust me, there's nothing wrong with the humidity. It has to do with, and it has a beautiful draw. I wouldn't call it loose. There is some resistance to it, but it's such a good draw that when you see these big plumes of smoke coming out of my mouth. So that is adding to the fact of how fast this thing is burning. And while I wouldn't say it's underfilled, it's definitely not packed. There's definitely some room to be reckoned with in there. I got to remove this band as well because we're about to run into it. The bands can be deceiving though. As you see, there is a bit of cigar left there. So Rafael Gonzalez, anyway, is still being produced. There are only, like a lot of other brands that are kind of dying out, being moved around. Who knows what's going to happen to them. There are only 3 vitolas left, one of which is short filler. And those are the Panatellas Extra, short filler, the Petit Coronas, and the Perlas. 2 small cigars, the Perlas being only 4 inches. So this brand is really, really on its way out. I don't even think, there may be 1 or 2, I don't know, but I know there aren't a hell of a lot of regional editions for this brand. So we may be saying bye-bye to Rafael Gonzalez in a few years. So the brand continued through the revolution, maintaining popularity through the 60s and 70s. But as world taste shifted towards stronger cigars, the brand lost its footing, and the crown of Cuban brands, well, let's just say he was kind of dethroned for a while. Never out of production, but no longer king of the world, we'll just say, right? Despite that loss, the cigars are still prized for their mild yet extremely complex flavors among connoisseurs. That coming from Wikipedia, so whoever the hell is writing the wiki articles, and they are, you can tell by the style of writing, I believe it's the same person or persons writing these articles. Good, actually I kind of wanted to stop for a second. Connoisseurs know and this is something I wrote, and after reading that, I said, yeah, that's really true. If it weren't for the connoisseur, this brand would be dead. If it weren't for the connoisseur, La Gloria Cubana would be dead. If it weren't for the connoisseur, a lot of small local brands that have 1, 2 vitolas left would be dead. That and the, regional editions coming into play caused a big resurgence in the interest of these brands. But then you get a lot of people who try the regional editions, and they're like, too mild, really tasteless, blah, blah, blah. Because it's not the type of cigar you're used to smoking, Connoisseurs know that these boxes are worth every penny and are phenomenal for aging. The brand is, sadly, like La Gloria, slowly dying. It maintained 3 vitolas, the Choix Supreme, Demitas, and the Grandes de España, which was a 7.6-inch cigar, 38 ring gauge, kind of similar to, it's a long panatella, similar to the Metal de Oro number 1, again, another similarity to, La Gloria Cubana. However, that cigar was also discontinued in 2010, and now there are only 2 vitolas remaining in the standard line. The Choix Supreme, which is probably the most popular, well-known cigar, and the Demitas. Both are handmade, 100% long filler, blah, blah, blah. But that's it, 2 vitolas. Same as La Gloria Cubana. You have the Metal de Oro 2 and 4. That's all that's left. The brand became so unpopular, so unwanted, due to all the people going after these strong, full-bodied cigars, that even in the best series, which was the Metal de Oro series, the most prized series, they cut out 2 of the vitolas in that series, leaving nothing but 2 behind. The funny thing is when, we talked about it just a few episodes ago with La Excepcion, that brand died because in 1989, during the 1980s, the world taste shifted from strong cigars to more mild, complex, flavorful cigars. So, it's like, it goes like this. I mean, you had a brand, La Excepcion, which was prized for years for being super flavorful, super full-bodied, and all of a sudden, like that, it's dead. They don't make any of them because nobody wanted them. Everybody wanted these really mild, connoisseur, complex cigars. Very funny. I find that very funny. And now everybody went to the strong cigars, and now, who knows, in 10 years, the resurgence might go back to the more mild cigars.